Mexico, México, México, Texas, 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 Oaxaca, Oaxaca, Oaxaca. How would you pronounce these words in Spanish? Which is the right pronunciation? Which is the original one? Well, the right pronunciation in Spanish nowadays is Mexico, Texas, Oaxaca. But it's usually said that Spanish is a phonetic language. Each letter has a sound, sometimes more than one, but there are clear rules we can follow to read a word correctly, even if we have never read it before. In this point, Spanish is easier than English. Actually, I have just pronounced this English word as read and after that as read. Even when they have the exact same spelling, these kind of things never happen in Spanish. But we have this interesting exception, the letter X. If we follow the general rules, we pronounce this letter as sa when it's at the beginning of a word, like in xilófono or xenophobia, or xa when it's in the middle of the word, like in taxi or examen. So, following the rules, we should read this word Mexico, or we should write it with J. But we don't. The reason why this happens is pretty interesting. When the Spanish arrived in America in 1492, there were millions of people already living here. Cities, religions, languages. And in what today is Mexico City, there was a massive city called Mexico Tenochtitlan. People who lived there were called Mexicas, and the language they spoke was called Nahuatl, or a certain kind of Nahuatl. The original meaning of Mexico, it's not clear. It's usually said that it means place in the navel of the moon, or lugar en el ombligo de la luna, but it's just a beautiful theory. Nobody really knows. But the pronunciation included a phoneme that sounded like sh, Mexico. In English, this sound is present in words like show or English itself. In Spanish, we do use this phoneme in Argentina, Uruguay, yo vi una ballena en la playa, but beyond the Rio Platense variety, this sound is very uncommon in Spanish. That's why sometimes we can hear Spanish speakers replacing it with cha, when they use anglicisms, of course. Un show, el champú, unos shorts. So did the Mexicas use the letter X to write the name of the city? Of course not, they didn't use the Latin alphabet. They had a completely different writing system. But even when Spanish doesn't have a letter to represent this sound, in the Old Castilian language, the sound sh did exist. It wasn't used in the same way we do today in South America, and it was represented with the letter X. So when the Spanish conquerors listened to the word Mexico, they wrote it like this. Sometime after that, the sound sh changed to ja in Spanish. So words like deixar became dejar. It's interesting that in Portuguese, the X still sounds like sh sometimes. Deixar, peixe, lixo, México. Anyway, the X didn't disappear in Spanish. Antonio de Nebrija, Don Quixote de la Mancha, Mexico. Until the year 1815, when the Royal Spanish Academy decided that all the words written with an X pronounced ja should change their spelling to jota. So Don Quixote, Antonio de Nebrija. But it was 1815 and Mexico was fighting for their independence. So they say, hey, you're not going to tell us how to write the name of our own country. Pinches gachupines! And they continue writing it with X. It was a matter of identity. Spain didn't accept that spelling and insisted in that it was not correct. And it was like that for many, many years. In 1992, they accepted the form with X as a possibility, but always preferring the spelling with J. It was in 2001 then the Royal Spanish Academy fully accepted the form with X as the correct one. But they still accept the spelling with J now. Nowadays, in Mexican Spanish, the Nahuatl words written with X can be pronounced in different ways, like sa in Xochimilco, ja in Oaxaca, or sha in Xola. Un taxi de Xola a Xochimilco cuesta 500 pesos mexicanos. Un taxi de Xola a Xochimilco cuesta 500 pesos mexicanos. It's true that this makes Spanish less phonetic, but as in many other things, I believe that what we should do is asking them, how do you want to be called? And I think it's clear that Mexicans want to be mexicanos y mexicanas con X. Ahora te dejo la chapa. No te olvides de suscribirte, tocar la campanita, dar like y dejarme un comentario. ¡Chao!